So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the RZNGMEN show. And I'm your host, Craig Carlisle. And it's always a blessing to be here where men can have real talk about real life. And on the phone, I've got a great friend of mine. I'm just so honored to have him on the phone with me and sharing his story. This is Rich Kirkpatrick. Say hello to everyone, Rich.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Of course, Craig, you are a good friend, by the way.
Man, I appreciate you. I know some of your story. I don't know all of your story. I know what I was looking to do, and the Lord gave me this On Track series. And so everyone that you know, this is the On Track series. And so with the RZNGMEN story, I want to be able to share with people, male artists who have a story, whose music is on track, whose lives are on track. And I wanted everyone to know how they got on track, because not everyone in the music industry is on track, right? Right, Rich?
I don't know. Not everybody's on track.
No.
It's hard to keep on track.
So that's a great segue. So help people understand, what's your story and how do you keep yourself on track? Because I know you're an author, you're a minister, you lead worship, you're a teacher, songwriter, husband, father, and I'm sure I'm missing some. How do you keep yourself on track?
Well, of course, having friends and is very important. But I think you have to focus on what gets me out of bed in the morning. Well, who am I really trying to please?
Sure.
Am I trying to please my Maker who called me to live a life of purpose, or am I getting up in the morning to do the treadmill of trying to please other people?
Sure.
And even good people, even people who I respect. What is the am I shooting for the better or the best, the good or the great, as some would say. And so I think what keeps me on track is understanding that it's not about my perfection, because I know that's not really it's laughable if I plan. Say God laughs at your plans, right? If you make a plan. So it's not about me being perfect that keeps me on track, about me having the best piety, because, I'm not that good of a person in that sense. Maybe none of us are. What it is, it's understanding who God is and what he made me to do.
That's outstanding.
And if I remember that, then it helps me make better choices. It helps me remember, the place my family has, and the importance of what fatherhood means, the importance of what, what is selfish and what is not selfish. So that, I've had to learn to take care of myself, health-wise. When you get into your late 40s, you start to realize, you can't do some of the things. And, you realize, okay, now I'm on blood pressure meds. And, what is it that keeps that, the motivation, as you have less physical stamina.
Sure.
And, you have to keep your focus on who God is and what he's made you to be. And then what you do in the morning when you get up, it seems to make more sense to me. It's just one step at a time.
We're not that far over the 40 bucket, right? I mean, you're not pressing against the 52 bucket.
I
yet,
am.
right?
I don't know about you. You are not. You're still a young man, but I'm getting close to that 50 mark next year.
Well, bless you. Good flattery gets you everywhere in this world, because I'm 47, so I'm pressing against that 50 button pretty close. Now, Rich, tell me, you talk about how you balance, and we're not the best. How do you continually strive to be the best husband? Because with your resume, your pedigree, your wife is a professional. I know she's busy. You're busy. You and I worked side by side in ministry for a period of time. And how do you balance that as a husband? How are you there for her, and how are you there for you and then for your kids?
Well, that's really been difficult. Spent many years, about 20 of them full-time or more than 20, in church leadership of different ministries, mostly worship, but also executive leadership and then production and whatever. That it's a very hard thing, because your spouse gets to sit when they come to church and watch what you do, or know that you're busy when they come to worship and rest and have their Sabbath. So it's a really difficult thing, and of course your kids too. But so that's really been hard. This season, it's not even even though I'm more freelancing right now, and I have a part-time role. I commute down to my the church that I serve, and it makes it a little harder for us on the weekend to even connect. So it's the little things, you know. One of the big tragedies in my house this week is that my espresso machine broke, which you would know for many reasons why that's a tragedy. But there was something when I was out of work for a time, you know, it was, you know, what can I do? So we filled our stockings with promises or promissory notes, I guess is the best way to put it. Here's 50,000 hugs or something, and they said, well, here's 300 days of coffee for my wife, and I think it's really paid off. First of all, I got her addicted to caffeine, so she needs me for something very practical.
Sure.
But I really think that practical stuff matters more than we give it. You know, whether the small things that we can do, serving our spouse. So, you know, just now she's a big wig principal, so you know she's the one more busy in high leadership, and
sure.
So you know, there's the days that I freelance. I don't have to get up at 6 in the morning like she does, and of course my kids are both older, so you know hopefully they get up on their own. But for me to get up early, make her coffee, say hello, send her out the door, kind of a role reversal in a way at this season in life, and it's actually very good.
But the blessing,
I think those little.
But the blessing, though, I loved it that you put it in there, that you get up and you are serving your wife, and you don't do it out of any type of vain service or any type of demand that she's placed on you. It sounds more like you're excited about the concept of serving your wife.
Well, I'm excited because I'm not excited about getting up early, to be honest. But I love coffee, and so I enjoy just a simple thing of sharing. And what started during a low part of my life and career, where, you know, we were, you know, out of ministry and you know, rejected in a way, because, you know, when you're a church pastor and somehow you have to leave or you leave or whatever, even under great circumstances, it's almost like a divorce because you can't really go back. You have like this platform. And so then you lose a lot. So we were just kind of lonely for a while. And one thing that my son and I did too was, you know, since I'm here and he's in high school, why don't we just make this goal of reading the Bible every day? And and we actually ended up, before he graduated, reading through the entire Bible. And, and again, it's not a super spiritual thing. I'm not trying to say, oh, look how great both of these little things are. But sometimes it's the little things that will anchor us more than we realize. If you could just find one little anchor, behavior and habit that puts you in that direction of spending that time, like eating together as a family. Much, I mean, sometimes it's a 15-minute experience.
Yeah, no doubt. They eat so much so fast, you know.
It's like. Yeah, you have all those boys. I know how I grew up with a bunch of boys, so it's like shovels.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so it's really the little things, and I am excited in the sense of what it does. But sometimes, like, oh, I'm making coffee. You know, it's not like I'm thrilled to death every time, but I get to make coffee. You know, this is what I'm doing, and it's some mornings I don't want to get up. But the fact that that's part of just one little thing, hopefully that represents a jumping off point to other things.
And I know when you and I used to work in servant service together, I know you made every effort that you could to keep your son involved and get your daughter involved in ministry. And I know, you know, as we talk about your project, I know I followed you and your daughter as you made the trips across the country. You and her spent a lot of time together on the road. You know, tell me about that. I mean, how did that feel? Because you've been intentional about your son's time. How did you feel in intentionality with your daughter being in the studio with her? She's a great songwriter and singer, and then being on the road ministering with your daughter.
I think it's just fantastic. You can't get better than that because your child, And of course, you know, having a son and a daughter, daughters are a little different in a good way. They can't do any wrong. Your sons, of course, can do wrong, but your daughter not as much.
Sure.
But it's a lot of fun. She laughs at my dad jokes on the road, and we, you know, part of what I had to do is realize, you know, she's an adult, so she has her own mind and space, and so when we work together, you know, she is a collaborator. She's not a second chair. Sometimes she has to be the first chair, and that's part of mentorship too. Is slowly putting, you know, the next generation in place before they have to take it. But in doing that, it's been a lot of fun. And we started when she was about 13. I just said, okay, you know, we need some singers, and she was doing it in the youth group, and so come up with us and sing. And I had other young people too. And unfortunately, it seemed that not everybody was excited about that. Like, why you just want your daughter up there? But I said, look at these other 3 young ladies that we have singing.
Sure.
But you know, but I think it's, if you're in ministry, nepotism, if you can't raise your own child up in what you're doing, then how could you raise other people?
Well, in the Bible, it says we're supposed to train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're older, then they're not going to depart from it. So how are we not supposed to do that, especially fathers? I mean, that's the premise of this show. I mean, raising men, that's in that case, you're raising a daughter, you're not going to raise your daughter to be a man, but you're raising the daughter because the premise is the same.
Oh, it is the same. I think, you know, our proximity to our sons and daughters, they need our words.
Sure.
However, you know, we think one of the best advice I ever received from a teacher was, you know, a man's words matter.
Exactly.
Even if, you know, you didn't live a perfect day, because you know what, Craig, you know, you might, but not me.
Oh, no.
Our words still matter. What we say is part of our calling in fatherhood, is to say the things we need to say, to affirm the identity of our children is our calling. And one of the things I'm proud of is that my wife, she's encouraged that, and she supports me doing that. It's not, you know, honestly, some guys, you know, I don't know what the word would be, but it's like men are often made fun of, you know, where, you know, you don't have anything to say, you know, you're just a grown-up boy, which is, all of that's true, actually.
Sure.
So, but in the long run, what we say matters. The bad that we say matters, unfortunately.
Yes.
And the good does. So, you know, that's something that I hopefully, you know, will still continue. And in this season, now that I have young adults, I think it even becomes more important.
Well, the sick thing about it too, Rich, is that the bad things that we say and do to our children, they last longer. They're at the surface of their minds so much more. And you're shepherding both a man and a woman's heart in terms of your children. And being able to shape what your daughter's view of a husband will be is huge. And same thing for your son, being able to shape what a man's role is in life, so he can, again, shepherd a woman's heart and being his wife and eventually his children, if the Lord gives him daughters.
Well, being artistic, since this kind of, you know, that is an interesting thing.
Sure.
I married an educator. She's also, though, grew up doing theater, and she, even though she's not, being an artist is not her, you know, identity as it is mine and my daughter's. My son, you know, who's super creative, you know, he has a podcast and a YouTube channel.
Oh, nice.
And he is a community of gamer kids that they're all, of course, young adults, but they're kids to us, right? Where he's building, so he's very creative. And I think when you're the added pressure is when you have a child who's more sensitive or creative. Sure. Or maybe, you know, whatever their uniqueness is. In our case, it's, you know, the kind of creative artist side. You know, that adds a component too, because you have to not shame them for being different.
So let's stop there. Let me stop you right there then. So you're saying that as fathers, we don't dress our kids the same and put the football jerseys on all of our kids and force them out there to play all the rough and tumble hockey and stuff? I mean, I mean, how did it make you feel when your son doesn't want to do the sport?
You know, I think that because my father, who was actually the most prolific athlete, my stepfather, who raised me for 12 years of my life and died unfortunately at 52, he was an athlete's athlete. I saw him do. He snuck me in to carry his golf bags when I was about 14 and 13, and I saw him do a hole-in-one on a very difficult round of golf. And he coached basketball, and he, you know, he's the kind of guy that could get 60 boys to just do a game, and he knew how to control them. This was, you know, he was in the USO in the Army, and a boys counselor. So he had, you know, our family was very gifted to have him, a blessing. But he, you know, he looked at each of us, and he really was proud of how we were different. Because the first oldest brother, you know, is kind of the brain, because he's truly very smart. Not that we're not smart, but he, you know, and my second oldest brother was also smart, but quite an athlete. Any sport he played, you know, he would start in. And then there was me, who was like, you know, I'm kind of clumsy. I'm not going to, but, you know, I'm stuck playing piano, and my friends are saying, where are you? We want to ride bikes right now. And I said, I can't help myself. I don't know why at 13 or 14, music found me. So, you know, because my father was very supportive and seeing this is who you are, it allowed me to not really have a question. And of course, my wife, she also made that easier for me too, because it doesn't just come from the dad how boys are supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, her father was an entrepreneur in a sense. You know, you had antique store, rare record store in San Jose was one of the most prolific stores of rare records in. And those who don't know what records are, those are vinyl things, you know, those LPs.
Those big platters, right?
Yeah, those big platters that people used to play music on, which actually are coming back. But anyway, so I think that's really important, because not every, you know, and manhood isn't necessarily about, you know, being able to fight in a UFC gym.
Exactly.
It comes in you know, different places. You know, there's a book, can't remember the name, but the paraphrase, the 4 pillars of manhood. You have you have the warrior, you have the lover, you have the priest, and you have the king. And those there's basically 4 mythical views of manhood. And so, you know, you have, of course, warriorhood. We have to learn to fight for the right things. So that's true. And lovers, you know, we have to learn to really love our family, our women, and so forth. And then we have the priest, where you know, we have the sense of the spiritual role, and then rulership. You know, we have to learn how to rule properly, how to use whatever power we have, because even just as a dad, like we talked earlier just a moment ago, our words do have power.
Oh man, yeah, power of life and death is in the power of our tongue. So,
and we're usually bigger for most of our children's lives. So,
oh yeah, no doubt.
You know, how do we use that physically? Are we a bully, or do we rule well? So those are 4 things at manhood, you know. And of course, Christ, you know, obviously represents our mythical perfection, if, for lack of a better word, mythical, just in the sense of the archetypes that we see in all of manhood, and all of history. You look at Christ, you know, he's a perfect warrior. He knows when to fight. He knows how to love, and he knows how to pray, and truly, you know, he's a creative. He knows how to create. So, you know, we're all going to be different, and I think that's, you know, I like sports, but you know, football is great for eating chips for me. You know, it's like falling asleep. You know, when I have 4 hours.
Yeah.
I might prefer watching a soccer game on the World Cup to that, but you know, it's not everybody's thing, and you know, we can't shame people for that if they're different. And anyway, you can't, you know, if you're a family of artists and you have a child who's super athlete, you got to say that's great.
Yeah, I have a very similar story as well. My oldest little guy, Caden, he's 13 now, and he has done everything from interpretive dance to playing flute. He plays saxophone. And now he's playing acoustic guitar. And I know when he first started doing the dance, Rich, I tell you, I was concerned. I was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? And I thought there was something wrong with me. And then he picked up the flute, and I was like, okay, all right, it's a musical instrument, but the flute of all things, come on, man. But what really helped me the most was I really had to understand and ask myself, was I trying to really shepherd his heart and help bring out the best? Because if I allowed, like my parents did, and squash my goals, then he doesn't become who he's supposed to be. If he was originally designed to have been the next Alvin Ailey or the greatest dancer or musician known to mankind, then if I squashed that as his father, that's horrible. And so I just couldn't do it. So I learned and to spend time with him and then continue to shape his experience of that and make it the best you can possibly make it. And then I got an understanding as to whether or not my child was really good at that, and did he like to do it, and can he make a living out of it. That was my role. That's the way I've taken it with my kids, and being able to understand who and where they are. And he plays volleyball too, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, there's another one. What are we doing? But he's a great kid. He's well-rounded. He knows what he's doing. But as a parent, I did struggle with those non-traditional, non-manly, ideals of what the society says is not manly.
Yeah, and if we do that, then you start to, if you don't let them make a mistake, like maybe I'm not a good musician.
Sure.
Then there's not options.
Exactly.
Because they never get to know that, or they find out whatever it is that they're just great at. But with volleyball and flute, you might have an incredible scholarship opportunity.
Exactly. And he's 13, and he's 5'8". So he wears a size 12 shoe, almost 13 shoe, and he's.
So volleyball could be.
Yeah.
There's some pretty. Volleyball can get pretty. What do we call it? Like a fight out there. You never know. It's like not like hockey, but you don't lose teeth as much.
Yes, true. That's true.
You might fracture some fingers. You might have those little mini fractures that basketball players get.
Well, at this rate, though, here's what's sick about it. I need his hands to be as easy flowing and arthritic free as possible, because he just got a full size guitar. He got a Gibson for Christmas, He is so excited. And Josh Nunez is his teacher. He says he's doing an amazing job, and he's only been playing since June, and Josh is raving about how he's playing. So I'm really excited. So let's talk music. Tell me about the project. Tell me where you are, Rich, and where you are with your music right now. And I've seen you sing. I've heard you sing. I've witnessed you play piano masterfully. Keyboards are my thing. Tell me about this project.
Well, I mean, part of what surprises me, first of all, is that I'm in a band with my 20-something daughter, who's more the front man for the group. We're co-writers. Our group is called A Beautiful Liturgy.
Yes.
And so the goal is to make and write a beautiful liturgy, which is just a word for public worship, what we do in worship as a church. Since we've been 8 years or so leading worship together, off and on, accidentally, she came in, the story here, she came in because I called her in from her bedroom. She was writing a song at the same time, I guess, and I was trying to finish this rework of a hymn, and I got stuck. And I said, okay, we've never co-wrote. I said, no, she has her thing, I have my thing, And then she comes in, and we ended up writing a very beautiful song based upon the hymn, "Oh, to be like Thee," and it's called "Oh, to be like You." Okay. And it came out just beautifully. And we ended up from there a year ago. Actually yesterday, a year ago, we ended up beginning crowdfunding a project which we successfully crowdfunded and made a 5-song project. Put it out on vinyl. We have a white vinyl, which is like we were talking about LPs earlier, and that was kind of her idea too, which brings back the fact that my father-in-law had a record store, and it was this really interesting family birthed ministry project, and it's modern enough, but it also has some of the old geezer's heart for the church and history in it too, because some of the songs we've written come from things that were in 700 AD, words that are that old.
Wow.
And the idea was to write something bigger than us, to pass on, you know, and as you think about legacy, that's important.
Sure.
So that's what we're doing now, and we've, you know, traveled in a few states, and we're looking forward to next year to doing, some mild touring and more writing, of course, and trying to make our music in a way that if you're a 100-member church, you can really use it, because a lot of churches still have liturgy. But if you don't, for instance, we have a song called Lord Have Mercy, a Modern Kyrie that's going to be on Worship Leader Magazine's Song Discovery in January.
Oh, wow.
So if you already get that magazine, you'll be able to hear that song and use that sheet music for your church.
Humbly you faced much cruelty, endure the cross for humanity. You gave yourself to save the world. Hard to be like you, oh, to be like you, blessed Redeemer, to be as you are. Oh, to be like you, oh, to be like you, painting your picture of love on my kindly you gave your mercy, govern my shame and brokenness. Set this wandering sinners high. Hard to be like you, oh, to be like you, blessed Redeemer, to be as you are. Oh, to be like
You're listening to Raising Men with my dad and your host, Craig Carla, on WKBY 1080 AM.